So I know that I've got a gap when I put the cap on this carb, and if I just slide this so that the front part is hanging off my surface plate here, maybe a little more. I can't really get my 6,000th feeler gauge underneath it. So that's good, right? Obviously, that's good. You can kind of get it right there a little bit. But for the most part, no. As soon as I start to walk that front part of the carb up, things change. Now I can start to get it underneath in here. And if I get way up like that, now we can just really easily slide that gauge in there, no problem. And I come around to right about there, and that's where it stops. We can do kind of the same thing on this side. And it stops right here. So from here to here-ish, it's just up too high. So there might be some high spots back in here too. I mean, there are. But for the most part, the part where the bowl is pretty good. I think that would just seal fine. Where I have the problem is just right out here at the tip. And if you look at the design, well, of course that's where, you know, the first jack hole that decides, you know, hey, I need to tighten this down more and more and more, they're just gonna lift this up, right? So what I think I'm gonna try to do is just grab this part and try to bend it down some. Trying to be careful because this could go terribly wrong. I don't want it to. I think it's made it better. Yeah, so with only the front part of the carburetor on and leaving most of the bowl hanging off, it's a little sticky right here with the 6th thou. But I'm not getting all the way in, I'm just getting it slightly under the edge. Certainly not here. And I'm getting it in right here. I can get it in here still. I might be able to do a little bit better, but what I need to do is put the cap back on and see how much light I can see through and what size feeler gauges I can fit all the way around it now. Around here on the bowl, right at this point, I can get 6/1000ths in. And I can get it in all the way back to that point. And I can get it in back here. And I can just barely get it in right here. But with the 10,000ths feeler, I can just barely kind of get it in right there. But it doesn't go all the way in. Nowhere else can I get it in. So 6 to 10 thou in a few different places. It's not ideal. I'm gonna see if I can make it better, but I think in theory the gasket might make up for that. Well, with a little bit of rubbing on some 320 grit, the surface plate. Got some Dykem on here, and now I can no longer get my 6 thou feeler gauge under here anywhere on the back side. So we're making progress. Alright, I am now able to get 6 thousandths in here, just between there and there, and nowhere else, but I cannot get 10 thousandths in there. So I'm thinking about calling that good. I think there's a diminishing returns situation, possibly even could make things worse. So I think I'm going to be happy with that. I've also done a little bit of work here. I might do a little bit more on that. But yeah, I think that's about as good as I should try for. So I'm preparing all of the pieces, making sure they're clean and ready to go back in. And I was about to put my Venturi back in. Pretty sure I've got that term right. My brain, you know, kind of doesn't work great all the time. And I decided, you know, I'm going to just see whether the Venturi's out of my other carburetors might be better, you know, whatever, fit better, anything. And so I looked here on the one that I pulled out of this carb, 32 to 34, 21.5. Look at the other ones, 32 to 34, 23. And yeah, bigger, smaller. Test fitting the throttle plate. I've got just the tiniest gap here. I can't even fit in my 6 thou gauge, and I think that's going to be just fine.
Clearly I've sped up the video here, but I wanted to show how I'm making dozens of tiny incremental advances of each screw to tighten this as uniformly as possible. I've got the extra 45 seconds to spare to see it done properly.
Fortunately, my throttle plate valve shaft, whatever, that seems really good. I don't really have any play in this shaft, and that's kind of your most important on this carburetor. I've got loads of play in this shaft, but all it does is activates this dude here, which either stops you from being able to close your choke or allows you to be able to open your choke. And I've played with the full range of motion that it has in it, and it doesn't really seem to keep it from operating as it needs to. So I'm just not concerned about it. Now the shaft itself doesn't have any play, but this linkage arm has a little bit of play. It does, you know, create just a little bit of inaccuracy in the process. So I don't know, we'll see. I find this to be kind of funny. It's stamped from the factory with 12 volt, and then somebody puts over here 6V, you know, with their own scribe machine. Pureberg. I think that this might be the only place that I've ever used a 9mm. We're going to bottom this out gently. There we go. And if memory serves, I think start out at like 2.5 turns out, something like that. So that's a half, 1, half, 2, half. Cleaned up the choke. Make sure we get a real nice good ground. Oh, that reminds me. Let's touch right down to my contact points. Okay, so that's 0 because I have built in about 0.2 ohms. So I think that's real good there. Tiny little tabs, 3, they just stick up barely. Is it a BIOS thing?
That's what I thought, so I tried to get into BIOS, but her keyboard doesn't have function keys, and that's the only way to get into the BIOS.
Really?
Yeah. So, she doesn't have F11, she doesn't have delete. Control file to activate in flash for BIOS update, doesn't have that either, so I couldn't do anything. Well, I don't know what to tell you really, just that's all come back some other day with
Dang.
proper stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well.
But
yeah. It's hard to anticipate something like the stupidest keyboard ever known to man.
yeah. I'd like one of those as like only to play games with. That's all I'd ever do it with. But I want mine for anything else.
Well, I'm pretty happy. So these nuts actually have a milled surface. I don't know that it's actually milled, but like it's as if it were milled. It's very flat.
You know what I mean? You're acting like as if you had a goldfish and it died.
So that the milled surface is making contact with the bottom and top of this. One of these down. This is sure not to be exact, but it's going to be roughly the right position. I'll make the adjustments after I get it all connected. Boy, that's loose. I mean, that is like loose. Okay, let's see if I can tighten it up here. The only thing this is doing is just making sure that your choke cannot come back during normal operation. Alright, so this is the one I got prepared. So that actually looks like a pretty good spot. Let's tighten that down a little bit. So, okay, now the choke is open. Come over here. The spring isn't tight enough. That spring is supposed to bring this guy back here all the way up. You see, it's only going part way. If you push on it, it goes where it needs to. So that spring's not tight enough. Yeah, see, it just pops up right where it should. Alright, so I got a little carb cleaner back behind this plate where the spring is and the rotating mechanism. And now it's doing like it should.
Final adjustments remain, but these are ready for installation. Stay tuned.